Enchanting.
Yoso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Suakato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipano Yasa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Tamayang Bhagavantam Sadamang Sasangang Ime Hisakare Hiyatarahang Aropite Hiyabhipujayama Sadhuno Bante Bhagava Suchira Parinibotopi Pachima Janata Nukampamanasa Ime Sakare Dugata Panakara Bhute Patikan Hatu Amhakang Dikhavatang Hitaya Sukhaya Alahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicha Charana Sampano Sugato Lokavitu Anuttaro Purissa Dhamma Sarati Sata Deva Manu Sanang Buddha Bhagava Tamahang Bhagavantang Abhipujayami Tamahang Bhagavantang Sirasa Namami Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akariko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyuhi Tamahang Dhammang Abhipujayami Tamahang Dhammang Sirasa Namami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho, Ujjupatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho, Yaya Patipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho, Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho, Yadidang Chatari Purisa Yugani Ata Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho, Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutarang Punya Ketang Lokasa Tamahang Sangang Abhipujayami Tamahang Sangang Sirasa Namami.
Metta chant.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, upwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, freed from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding means of false views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness me. The questions. Do one at the bottom, first of all. Dear Ajahn, don't we feel the breath in the body? How do we let go of the body if we are feeling the breath in the body with metta? In the old days, if you came here from overseas, you'd have to come in a car. Oh, no, sorry, not a car, sorry. In an aircraft. And you may come from Singapore, from Vietnam, from Thailand in an aircraft here. Can you come into this room in an aircraft? Of course you can't. The aircraft stops at the airport, and then you get a car from the airport to the car park. You can't drive your car in here. Then you come out in your shoes and you walk along the path. You leave your shoes outside, and then you can come in here. Different vehicles for different stages of the path. So this is what happens when we do our meditation. We use the breath for those first 4 stages to make sure we're aware of the breath, and then the body starts to vanish. Poof. And so you're left with, first of all, the feelings, the beautiful joy and happiness, the nimittas, and then the jhanas. It's the way of letting go and transcending the body. So you're not feeling the breath in the body, you're just feeling the breath. Where the breath is located, this is one I haven't mentioned yet, it's a good opportunity. Sometimes people say you're supposed to watch the breath at the tip of your nose. Sometimes in your tummy. Sometimes where? The thing of people thinking you got to watch the breath at the tip of the nose was just because they interpreted that satipatthana to watch the breath in front of you. Where are you? You're not just behind the nose. You're in the head, should you watch your breath up here? That's where you are. No, it's in your tummy. I know about lunchtime, many people are in their tummy. So you can watch it there. No, that is just a myth. You just watch the breath wherever it happens to be. And my story that I had, I still have hay fever. So some time of the year, I couldn't watch the breath at the tip of my nose. You know why? Because the breath wasn't there. My nose was blocked. And then I found out you could watch the breath in your tummy. I thought, yeah, now I can meditate. Watch the breath come in, go out here. But then when I became a monk, or even like you now, keeping your precepts, you don't eat anything in the afternoon or the evening. And if you start watching your breath in your tummy right now, you start to feel hungry. Because the tummy and the stomach is pretty close together. So that didn't work. I started to feel hungry in the evening. And then finally you figured out you don't. The Buddha never said to do nose meditation, nor belly meditation. It was breath meditation. So after a while I think, wow, I don't need to watch the breath anywhere. And these days when people first learn the breath meditation from me, I just say, sit down, close your eyes, watch 3 breaths, in, out, in, out, in, out. And stop. And open your eyes. That's all the instructions I give them. And then afterwards I said, could you do that? I said, yeah, you could watch the breath go in, out, in, out, in, out. I said, how did you know the breath was going in and coming out? Well, we know it's easy. I said, "Were you watching at the tip of the nose?" I said, "I wasn't watching it anywhere. I just knew it was going in, knew it was going out." And that's all you need to do. Natural, easy. And it's very helpful. That was a great advantage for me, not watching it anywhere, because I couldn't watch it in my nose all the time, couldn't watch it in my tummy, but I can still know I'm breathing in and breathing out. And so that became how I watched my breath, which meant it became much easier to let go of the rest of the body, because it wasn't linked to the body from the beginning. It's just breath. And then the breath vanishes and your body's gone. Yay! Now, I'll mention more about that tomorrow, because I promise, talk about disappearing tomorrow. Maybe. No. Oh, we'll see what happens. Dear Ajahn, if the earth has been destroyed, where would human beings be reborn? Oh, in Mars? On the moon? No, there's many. I was talking to someone earlier about there's many suttas, many teachings, and mostly they're about the nature of the mind, how to meditate, how to get rid of the emotional problems. But it does say a few things about cosmology. And there's one sutta, it's in the Anguttara Nikaya, where it starts to talk about aliens. Do you believe in aliens? There are aliens, you know. Because I remember once going to Heathrow Airport, and you can see the signs there, British citizens, EU citizens, and aliens. You see it, was there? I never see any aliens, because maybe their ship hadn't arrived yet. But the Buddha said, yes, there are. Ooh, it's amazing. Other world systems, other beings. And when I saw that, wow, that's interesting. Even though, that it was only a small sutta, just quite insignificant, but it was there. So, if the earth has been destroyed, where will human be reborn? Maybe there's many places where you can get reborn. Maybe in your next life you'll have little antennas. Who knows? But anyway, they say if lots of planets are destroyed, at the end of the universe, this universe, and as I was mentioning this morning, in Buddhism, this is not the first universe. Universes come, universes go. It can happen once. Why only once? If it can happen, it will happen again. And bodies get destroyed, but the human beings, you're not your body. Your mind, stream of consciousness, whatever you wish to call it. They can get reborn in, here we go, the realms of just pure mind, the Jhana realms. They're at places you can get reborn into and last for a long, long time until you eventually come back down again when the next universe forms. It's a very huge cosmology. Anyway, how does someone get wisdom from meditation? Can someone get wisdom from after getting an nimitta? How can someone penetrate the truth after a jhana? Easy. Okay, this is similar. I was going to I'll probably talk about this tomorrow again in brief when I do the talk about disappearing, as long as that idea doesn't disappear from my mind overnight. But anyway, there was the full simile of the tadpole and the frog, which, sometimes to get those similes so people can understand it, that's the one I made up. So once upon a time, there was a little tadpole born in a lake, just like our lake, just down the bottom past cottage number 6. And it was a very lovely tadpole, really smart. You wouldn't believe that in Tadpole they had a tadpole school. So I went to the tadpole school, did really, really well. It was a very smart tadpole. I did so well that eventually, when it graduated from tadpole school on year 12, it went to Tadpole University. And in Tadpole University, it studied what it was really like was chemistry, and became an expert after graduating with a bachelor's degree, then did a master's and a PhD on the nature of water. She wanted to study something which was relevant to her because she was living in water. So she became a PhD in water and eventually became a professor of water studies. And because it was in a monastery like this, that sometimes there were these Burmese monks, and they taught this little tadpole Abhidharma on water. And so this tadpole knew everything there was possibly to know about water. But could that tadpole know what water really is? Can know all the theory, can be a professor and teach people. That's what a professor means. You know when you get a PhD, you know what PhD means? Yeah, you know, I've told many of you before. PhD means permanent head damage. That's what it stands for. So anyway, so little tadpole was an expert on water, but she couldn't really know what water was, no more than a fish can. But one day, little tadpole, she noticed things were growing on her, arms and legs. She was transforming. She was becoming a frog. And when she became a frog, no one told her what to do with all these extra limbs. But one day, she didn't know what she was up to, and she jumped out of the lake. And she was squatting on dry land outside of the lake. That was a strange experience for her, like nothing she'd experienced before. And the main thing about it, there was something missing. Exactly. The water had always been there. She couldn't notice it. But once it disappeared, then she could understand what it was. And that's the only way that frogs can understand what water is, because they can move from water to land. They're amphibious. So, the jhanas, you're jumping out of your usual state of existence with your body and 5 senses and your mind. And people think they know what the body is. You can study it, look at other people's bodies, read about it, become an expert in it, teach in universities about the body. But you can't really know what it is until you jump out of it. And that's what a jhana can do for you. You're out of the body, standing on dry land. The 5 senses are gone. You're free of them. Now you know what they're like, what they're truly like. You have the opportunity, you have the data, the information to get insight. I mean, big insights. So you get the data, and number 2, you have the power of your mind, free of hindrances. It's not what you want to see, it's not what you don't want to see. You're still, no sloth and torpor, no doubt. Your mind is clear. And you can hold on to the experience long enough for you to see things you haven't heard from any monk or nun. You haven't read it in any book, you can see it for yourself. That's how insight arises. And that's, for little insights and all types of meditation, you get more of the hindrances get weakened. The more you meditate, the more you get clarity of mind, the more insights you have in life, the more you can feel your body, you can understand how it works and understand how your mind works. So these insights, the small insights, they come little by little, and you become wiser. And then after a while, you get the nimittas, it's really strong stuff, and you get very, very wise about the nimittas, about the nature of pleasure and pain. And also you get, as I say, they even get nimittas, you should never be afraid of death anymore. Actually, you will all see nimittas, every one of you. If not when you're alive, when you're dead. Going towards the light. What is that light? Same as you see when your 5 senses start to be subdued during meditation. So these nimittas, it's almost like learning how to die. A rehearsal before it really happens. But they're perfectly safe, the meditation. And that's actually the answer to that question. Say more about it tomorrow with stillness. The stillness means things disappear, so you can find out what's going on. Dear Ajahn, The first one of the 5 precepts, to refrain from taking life, not killing any living being. However, by eating meat is an accomplice with the killing. How can we show compassion by eating their meat? Well, it's just usually when you eat their meat, they're already dead. So don't feel anything when you eat their meat. I was a vegetarian before I became a monk. Once I became a monk, that was one of the things I said I had to give that up. It was really tough for me. I remember in the temple in London when I ate my first prawn after so many years as being a vegetarian. And it was really tough for me. Just put it, no, I can't do it. Put it in. The reason you did that is because as a monk, especially those first years in Thailand, you had to eat whatever was given. So I did eat meat. But I'll tell you what meat I ate. One day, for one meal of the day, we had a bowl of sticky rice and a frog. That's all we had to eat, just one frog. And it wasn't fried. It didn't have any garlic or salt or onions. It was just boiled frog and rice. Not even salt. That's all we had to eat. And I really, sometimes I tell this story to young boys, to tell them when you go to school, they sometimes ask, why do I have to learn science? I said, you never know how it might help you. I remembered my biology. So when I was picking out the frog, the legs, you take first of all because they're just like chicken. But then you can't just survive just on the meat from the legs. So you start opening up the stomach and eating the organs. And I knew one part of a frog from another because I paid attention during biology. But this is no exaggeration. The monk sitting next to me didn't know one part of a frog from another and pressed the frog's bladder. And it still had urine in it. And that frog peed all over his rice. That's a true story. I don't know how I managed to survive that. But anyway. And I'd have done anything to be a vegetarian then. So sometimes, if you can, please do. If you can't, then you can't. And even the Buddha would eat meat sometimes. What's this one here? Nothing. Okay. All right, maybe not so many questions. You've got some blanks. Next question. How do we let go while resting or sleeping? It's natural. When you're resting, that's a natural way of letting go. Sitting in a chair, just having a cup of tea. You're letting go of doing something, trying to attain things, trying to get somewhere, trying to go somewhere. When you're fast asleep, sometimes you have dreams. What type of dreams do you have? Do you have letting go dreams? If you've been doing a lot of letting go during the day, then when you're dreaming, you can dream letting go. And it's really nice, maybe as a monk, because I've done a lot of meditation, sometimes you dream you're meditating, or you dream of letting go while you're dreaming, you dream of letting go. They're really cool dreams there when you let go of things. I remember one of the most wonderful dreams I had, and a really clear lucid dreaming. And I don't know where this came from, but I was, it's a dreaming, okay, not real life. When I was dreaming, I was having this psychic battle with this Hindu saint. It was really good fun. We're flying through the air, zapping each other, just missing, and using all our psychic powers, zap, 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 flying, boom, boom, boom. And I never wanted that dream to end. That was really good fun. But because it was my dream, I won. That told me I should have let go and be kind. It was really good fun, because when you're a monk, that's the sort of dreams you have. Psychic battles with Hindu saints. Anyway, but what you do let go before you go to sleep, as you are sleeping. You say that I'm not trying to achieve anything through sleep, I'm giving my body a nice rest. So I mentioned a few ways of doing that, like scanning your body, being kind to your body. Your body's done a lot of work during the day. And just walking and just cleaning up and doing stuff. So you put your body into the bed. And please make sure it's nice and comfortable. So you be aware of it. The kindfulness, and just to relax the whole body. And if you don't go to sleep before you finish relaxing the body, you just wish yourself a happy night's sleep. And I do that to myself. I got into the habit of doing that. I wish myself a good night. Good night, Ajahn Brahm. Have a nice sleep. See you in the morning. Bye. Because wishing yourself a good night is just an act of kindness to yourself. You do it sincerely, wishing yourself kindness. And you wake up in the morning, oh, here I am again. Have a wonderful day, me. And sometimes I do that when you first get up, you go to the toilet, you look in the mirror. And I do my 10 push-ups. In front of the mirror, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that kindness to yourself? So don't expect other people always to be kind to you. You can always be kind to yourself any time, and that's a wonderful thing to do before you go to sleep at night. And that you take that kindness, that relaxation into the sleep. You have a nice night's sleep. Ajahn, what are some skillful means of dealing with difficult extended family members who are good at pushing your buttons and playing mind games? Become a nun or a monk. And then you can escape from them. Families are families. You don't choose the members of your family. You're stuck with them from birth. But you can choose your friends. So with your family members, you try your very best, but you know they try to control you sometimes. I don't know why people do those things. So make sure that you know your buttons before they know your buttons. And when you know your buttons, first of all, you can disable them. It's not that hard to do. But if they push your buttons once, you say, you should, spend more time with your mum. I should do, but it's so busy or whatever. And then, you know what the button is. And you say, you're honest with yourself. Well, I can't, because, I'm got my family and other things to do. I can't be a perfect person. And you know yourself. So no one else can judge you. But sometimes when I say that I don't judge other people, I don't judge the monks in the monastery, because it's so hard to know other people and what they do and why they do it. And why do people do stupid things? They thought it was a good idea at the time, and they made a mistake. So how can you criticize someone for that? And I find it's so difficult to criticize other people for any actions they do. And I look at my own actions. Why did I say that? Why do I say stupid jokes? And I asked that question of myself, and I found the answer is because my father said stupid jokes. I was conditioned by him. I've got his genes in, his blood in it's like jokey blood. So, what is the best type of blood for someone on a spiritual path? Should be obvious to you. Be positive. So that's the view I got from my father. So because of that, I tell stupid jokes. And so how can you sort of complain about it? And you all know that by now. You come listen to some talks. You should know what to expect when you come on one of these retreats. Which means you can't criticize, and you can't criticize anybody else. So because of that, no one can push your buttons. I can't even push my own buttons, let alone anybody else pushing them. So have no buttons. Why do people worry what other people say about them? They just don't know. They haven't got a clue what you're doing, what you're up to. So because of that, you can relax to the max. Other people say, I say, that's why we have two ears. It's much better if you shave your hair off, because what goes in one ear comes out the other. If you've got hair, sometimes you can't hear properly what's being said. But when you've got two ears, one goes in, the other one comes out. So what they say to you goes in one ear, out the other. You don't keep anything. If people are praising me, I usually put one ear over here, block it, so it gets stuck inside. I can keep that. Because otherwise, we just become under the power of other stupid people. And it's not really worthwhile doing. So your family members, just they can say whatever you like to you, but you don't react. When you don't react, they get fed up with criticizing you. They go and criticize somebody else because it's a waste of time trying to upset you. I did that a long time ago. There was one monk who was always very bad-tempered. And one day he really tried to tell me off because I was washing my bowl with the wrong cloth. And I was busy doing this. He stood over me and just really red-faced and said, "That's a filthy habit, Brahmavamso. That's disgusting, washing your bowl with that cloth." Much worse than that. But then I looked at what I was doing, looked at all the other monks, we were all doing the same. Why is he picking on me? That's unfair. But I realized that if I followed that line of thought, that he would have riled me, he would upset me. So I decided to try another path. I looked at him and said, "Sorry." I went off to the rag bag and got another cloth. And as I was doing this, it was one of those wonderful experiences where all the monks had stopped talking or doing whatever they're doing. They were watching me. Is he going to go to that rag bag and throw it all over that angry monk? And I just went there, picked up a rag and walked back slowly. And then I looked up at the monk who was angry, and all the other monks looked at him as well. See what he would do next. Because I hadn't reacted with anger back. That monk went even more red, and he walked away. He never got angry at me ever again. He said, "It's impossible. It's a waste of time getting angry at that monk." And it was wonderful. I won that encounter. I always remember that. A wonderful way if somebody gets really upset. "You stupid monk, you're terrible, you should get a proper job." So yeah, maybe you're right. And that means the person never gets angry at you again. It's a waste of time. Can you please elaborate on the Dhamma you described this morning in the 7 factors of enlightenment? You want an hour's talk again? The only place I mentioned the Dhamma was the Dhamma Vichaya, which is like investigating Dhamma or contemplating it. And I remember that was a similar use of holding up the water. What is this? That's actually how you investigate. You don't think, that's just old knowledge. You don't try and find out new connections. That's just a waste of time. Other people have been there and done that. You do it for yourself. Look deeper at what this is and how you can make more innovative ideas of what is this. So when you have a body, a mind, look deeper into it. Find out what it really is. Not what you've been told it is, or what you see it is. I may not have understood your question properly, so if I didn't, you can always ask the question again the next day. Dear Ajahn, how do we get rid of ants in our kitchen without killing them? Thank you. Is by having a clean kitchen when there's nothing to eat. For those ants, they'll go somewhere else. How do you get rid of people coming into a restaurant? You close it down, so there's no food. And then the people go somewhere else. So if you keep the kitchen nice and clean, and there's nothing left for them to nibble on, then the ants disappear. But you really want to get rid of the ants, because the ants do a lot of cleaning. It's a wonderful way of recycling, because we have so much extra food. So the ants can eat a bit of it. And especially mice and rats. They're wonderful, mice and rats. They're so cute. And they can actually just all the excess food so you don't have to clean up and wash afterwards. Is that a good idea? I don't know why people don't like mice and ants. If it's in the city, the mice and ants are sometimes dirty. But this is Jhana growth. Everything is so clean. They're really holy mice and rats here, don't you think? And the ants, they're part of nature. Can't we live with nature instead of trying to control nature? What do you think, Leha? Shall we just let the mice and the rats come back in? And sometimes, I don't know why people get upset at animals. Animals just doing their thing. They were here first. So anyway, if you've got a kitchen and there's ants in it, a lot of times it means you haven't really cleaned it properly and you've got too much food outside. You can put food in containers so the ants can't get at it and they will leave you alone. But even more than that, this story comes up. You've gone to see my cave today, many of you. But there's one of the other buildings, and I was a builder in most of those huts in the early days. One of the first huts we built was an A-frame hut. I remember building that one, and it was hard to find a nice space without cutting down trees. It was a wonderful space, but there was an ant's nest right close by. And so I was building, and I said, I actually went to the ants and basically asked permission. Treat the animals as if they got consciousness, certainly got feelings. And so I was the builder. I made sure that even if it was extra work to move the concrete and the sand just around the ant's nest rather than straight over it, and the pieces of wood to make the frame for the A-frame and the pieces of steel, I never harmed the A-frame at all. Sorry, they harmed the ant's nest at all. I made sure that I protected it and cared for it, so there was no injury there. And after building that A-frame, I went to live in it. I think the second rains retreat in Bodhinyana Monastery. And those ants would never come into the hut. They would always leave me alone. And when I went outside, I always make sure if they had a path there where they were walking, I'd always step over it, never be mindless and just walk straight into it. And so the ants and me, we lived in harmony together. Them in their place, me in my place. You know what happened next? That somebody was driving our tractor and they went right over that ant's nest and the wheels of the tractor. And from that day on, I'd already moved from that ants to that A-frame. From that day on, they started coming in. And I often think about that example. When you're kind to animals, sometimes they feel it. They know that, that they don't need to come and mess around with you because you don't mess around with them. But on that ant's nest, that one of the people who was living here decided to do an experiment to see how intelligent they were. And you see the ants' mounds, they've got many holes in there. He took a sugar cube and put the sugar cube, on top of one of the holes to see what they would do. Because the sugar cube is just like food. Really delicious, easy to store, but how can you get that cube down into the store places, in the bottom of the ants' mound? And it's brilliant what they did. Instead of trying to break it up into bits, and that would be too hard work, they excavated it from underneath. So every day it went down another couple of millimeters, and he invited me to come and have a look. It's amazing, just their engineering skills. And soon it was just low enough they could cover it up. And they wouldn't actually stop. They excavated further and further and further and further and further and further and further down. They got to their storeroom. Great engineers. And they cooperated enough. I don't know which ant came up with that idea. But it's amazing to see their harmony and their innovative, because they never had that problem ever before in their life. So you really respect some of the animals in the forests. And so that's actually how we deal with ants in the kitchen. Just be a bit more careful. making things more clean. When do we join in with you when chanting? For example, preliminary homage to the Triple Gem, is it Bhagawa or later? Whatever you want. There's no real rules. So when you feel it's a time to join in, go for it, join in. Easy. So maybe it's because I'm just rebellious, that sometimes I have so many rules, you don't want to give any more rules. You've got enough rules to keep. So whenever you want to start, sometimes, I've done that before, but you haven't really taken the bait. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, and everyone yo-so together. A bit more fun. Ajahn Brahmavamso, I've noticed I'm losing a lot of mindfulness upon sleeping and waking. Is there some sort of sleep meditation that can be done? No. Sleeping is for resting. If you're trying to be meditating when you're asleep, you're not really sleeping. So just let the meditation, let the mindfulness go when you go to sleep. Have a good night's sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you're a bit groggy, but you soon come to again. So don't try and stay awake 24 hours. Otherwise, you go mad. So anyway, that's mindfulness upon sleeping away. But when you wake up, you soon get back to your mindfulness again. But when you do wake up, if you really feel that you lose your direction when you wake up, just tell yourself, when I wake up, this is what I will do before you go to sleep. When I wake up, I will jump out of bed, go zippity-doo-dah, what a wonderful day. Actually, that's maybe not a good idea because you've got people sleeping next to you. But that's what sometimes Ajahn would tell us. He said, when you wake up in the morning, just jump out of bed and then look at the clock. If you look at the clock before you jump out of bed, just another 15 minutes. Just another 5. Because if you really wake up and you're alert, you can always go to bed some other time. And if you do miss your sleep, you can always catch up on your sleep when you're dead. Okay, Ajahn, sometimes anxiety gets in the way of even going to sit. What is the best way to deal with this? Anxiety is looking at the future with a negative mind. All the things which might go wrong. All the terrible consequences when you're not doing what other things you can do. It's a wonderful thing to meditate. And it's probably the best thing you can probably ever do. And so because of that, I don't know why you have anxiety. So we have a choice. When you look at the future with a negative mind, that's called anxiety, fear, think of all the things which might go wrong. When you look at the future with a positive mind, that's called hope. You have a choice. Do you want to be hopey or be anxious? And the usual story which I tell is of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. You know Winnie the Pooh, Piglet. So Pooh Bear and little Piglet had just been visiting, I think, Rabbit's house to have something to eat. And they were walking home. And as they were walking through the forest, a storm started to come. And the winds got stronger and stronger, and as they blew more fiercely, first a lot of twigs fell down, then branches were ripped off the trees and came crashing to the ground, and then whole trees got uprooted and came crashing down around them. It was dangerous to walk through a forest in the storm. And little Piglet, who was an anxious fellow, got so scared, so afraid. He grabbed Pooh's paw and squeezed it. Pooh, Pooh, I can't go on any longer. What would happen? What would happen if a tree fell when we were underneath it? And that was a possibility. And for a couple of seconds, Winnie the Pooh was afraid. But then his great wisdom and genius came up, and he answered that question: what would happen if a tree fell when we were underneath it? With what would happen if a tree didn't fall where we were underneath it? Which was far more likely. And that took away both of their fears, and they walked home happily and safely. So the answer to anxiety, what would happen if, plus something terrible, is what would happen if, and something nice. And you will know if you are a scientist or a mathematician who's done probability theory, it's more likely that you're going to survive than you're going to die. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to die these days. You have all these people who ring up the ambulances and stop you. So because of that, the anxiety is about things which probably will never happen. Okay, I better do some more questions, otherwise I'm going to be in big trouble. I find it easier to... I'm anxious that I might not finish the questions. Chances are I will. I find it easier to practice on a retreat, but continuity is difficult outside. Can you give some advice on motivation priorities? You see the great benefit of meditating and taking some peace. So give yourself more time to meditate. So remember I told that story a couple of days ago, and about the jar and putting stones in the jar. If you want to fit, I told that story, didn't I? If you want to put the big stones in the jar, can you leave them till last until you've got everything else in? The big stones have to come in first. And the small pebbles next, the sand, water, whatever else, you can always find places to fit them in. But the big rocks, they have to go in first. It's called prioritizing. So you give priority to something like meditation. It's great. Meditation makes time. And it's great for your health. And it's great for your happiness. And it's great. It means you don't have to go and see psychologists and psychiatrists. I'm sorry to all the psychiatrists and psychologists here. I'm really bad for your business. So you actually have more time in life. And you're more happy. And all of the... Oh, the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is resilience. It's one of these important words. These days, people are just not resilient. Someone says something to you, you're ugly. What? Why do you say that? Oh, come on, you're just telling a story. So, someone calls you stupid, you get really upset, you keep thinking about it. Why is it that people haven't got this resilience anymore? And the reason is that simile of the guitar string is so tight because you don't know how to relax and rest. That anything hits it, bing! It always makes noise. You've got no resilience because you're so tight, so stressed. But when you're relaxed, no tension at all. The string is as loose as my robe. You know that some people noticed that I gave this talk over in Perth to a group of executives. And one of them was very smart. She said, that's one thing I noticed about you. You know, your robe is so loose and it falls off. And she said, you know, that's who you are. And she went to school with these nuns who were just so tight. Even in their habits was just like, you know, wearing sort of a straitjacket. It was so tight. And he said, that's why you're resilient. You're loose, you're not tight on both ends. So when you learn how to meditate, it's amazing just how much practical wisdom for your health and well-being and your resilience. Whatever happens to you in life, you know, things go wrong in life and it's not your fault. And you're out of a job. Oh, wonderful, I can go to Jhana Grove more often when I'm out of a job. You always see the positive side of life. And then because that's the way you are, you have a much happier life. Because you've learned, so meditation is really important for so many areas of life, which is one of the reasons why put it in your jar pretty early. And if you can do that, you find so much more time, peace and happiness in your life. when you give it priority, you can always find time for it. As Ajahn used to say when people said, oh, it's okay when you stay in a monastery, you can meditate. When I go home, I've got no time to meditate. And he used to say, well, how much do you find time to eat? Oh, yeah, always find time to eat. Why? 'Cause I need to eat. It's for my health. Meditation is, Ajahn Chah called food for the heart. If you don't have food for the heart, you get very sick. So when you give it importance, when you realize how important it is, of course you find time for it. And you'll always have time for everything else. Ajahn, can humans be born in one of the 31 realms of existence after leaving this human realm? Yep. Return to lower realms or human realms again based on their karma effects. Yeah, there's so many realms you can go to. Even, I remember reading Plato's Republic, and the Greeks all believed in rebirth, at least the wise ones, before the new ones came around. And those old ones, this is a very interesting way they described it. They said that when a person dies, they go over the river Styx, S-T-Y-X. And that's why sometimes you see these figures of grim reapers and boats and stuff. That comes from the Greeks. And they go to the Elysian fields. Now, nice and rest, like a holiday camp. And when you've had it long enough at the Elysian fields, you choose your next rebirth. What do you want to be next time? And they said, one thing I always remember, the stupid ones always want to be famous and powerful. The wise one want to be in the middle somewhere. Not too famous, not too powerful, because you have a much happier life when you don't have to live up to so many people's expectations. And so that's why I can't understand why anybody would want to be a prime minister. Who in their right mind would want to do something like that? It's quite obvious they're not in the right mind. Or president. So anyway, and then when you decide what you want to be and when you want to be it, then you go over the river Lethe, L-E-T-H-E, which is forgetfulness. And then you get reborn again and have another experience. So that was how the Greeks had it. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's not just your karma. Your karma gives you limitations. Maybe you can't be this person, you haven't made enough good karma for that. But it's mostly your wanting, your craving, what you want to be. That is also important for your rebirth. Where do you want to be reborn? So if you want to go overseas, you have to have the money for the air ticket. You also have to have the visa. So you have to want to go there. The means and the desire. Many people may have the desire to go overseas, but we can't do it right now because of COVID. But later on, when COVID's gone, you may want to go overseas, but you haven't got the money. Or you have got the money, but you don't want to go. So to be able to get overseas, you have to want and have the means. To get reborn anywhere, you have to want to be reborn there and also have enough good karma to get there. That make sense? Okay. Dear Ajahn, did the Buddha say in the sutras, just as a rock is not shaped by the storm, just as a rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise one are not affected by praise or blame. What does this say about praising? What did he mean? The Buddha never said that, because the Buddha spoke in Pali, and that's English. Well, what that saying means is that we have praise and blame in this world. So it's much better for most people to actually give praise rather than blame. If you praise people, you get much more back in return. So if you praise a cook, say, oh, there's delicious food today, they want to bring you more delicious food tomorrow. But if you blame them, say, that was disgusting food today, they're not going to come back ever again. Praise, when I say flattery, gets you everywhere. You try that. So, but also, there's enough blame in this world. So it's great to give praise. Someone makes a mistake, just forget it. They do it right. Let them know. Well done. It's called, the positive reinforcement, the be positive in the bloodstream, the blood type. And I still remember this was when I went to the United States a few years ago to give a series of talks. And somebody told me about this guy who was making such a fortune with actually training dogs, in apartment blocks in New York, to only sort of do their toiletry outside the apartment, not inside. And the way that he managed to do this was just positive reinforcement. You take the puppy outside in the sidewalk into the parks, and he would wait until the puppy did its poo or its urination against a tree in the right place. And then he would punch the air, dance up in the, do a happy dance, sing a song right in front of the puppy, do cartwheels, almost like have a party, in front of the dog. And even the dogs realized, this person was happy when it pooed outside or when it sort of peed outside. And that was actually conditioning the puppy. And so after a while, that's the only place the puppy wanted to do its toiletry, outside. It would never do it inside. And it was very effective training, so effective that the fellow was hired a few other people, trained them, and they was making a fortune, like puppy toilet training, through positive reinforcement. But by the time I got to San Francisco on this tour, I heard the guy got into big trouble. Because what happened, the puppy, the dog, was in the apartment while the owner was watching the football on TV. And his team would score a goal, he'd go, yeah, 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 yeah. And the puppy would poo. So you've got to be careful with positive reinforcement. But praise for a human being is always well received. And encouraging. Say, well done, you did a wonderful thing. It encourages other people to do wonderful things and you to do more wonderful things. So if someone's really helped you on this retreat, somebody who's, looked after you, not me, not even at Leha. It's her first retreat as a retreat manager. So thank you so much. It makes a lot of difference. And it means it inspires her, gives her energy to do more good things for you. Don't you like praise? Of course you do. It's encouraging. Blame makes you think, I've done all this work, and that's all you say. You blame me all the time that, there's not enough choice of food, or it's the wrong type of food, or the toilets don't work, or there's ants in the kitchen, or all this other stuff. All the wonderful things which are happening. And you focus on those and praise those, and you find you have much more happiness in this world. Kindly give us an explanation of the Metta Sutta in the Metta Meditation Guidance point of view, perhaps included in one of the morning teachings. The future is uncertain. If your karma is ripe, it will happen. It usually happens on the last day of the retreat. Could you talk to us a bit about the problem of ill will, especially towards the self? Thank you so much. Why does anyone have ill will towards themselves? That's the most crazy thing. You've got to live with yourself. You can't escape from yourself. You can ignore what other people say, but you can't really ignore what you say. So if you're going to talk to yourself, give yourself not ill will, give yourself praise. You're such a wonderful person coming to meditate for the last, I don't know how many days. Well done. You've been just so kind. You haven't given me any nasty questions yet. Maybe they're underneath. So see the positive side of you, not sort of the focusing on mistakes. If there are anything you've done wrong, that's the 30% of the 70%, of the 100%. where you learn and you grow. Well done. You're learning more, you're growing more. Well done. So don't look upon mistakes as an excuse to give yourself ill will. Don't you have enough illness already in your life? And you're willing yourself to be more ill? That's what ill will means, isn't it? May I be ill. May I be in pain. May I be sick. May I be... I mean, to say things like that means you really are sick. To want yourself to be more sick. It makes no sense to me. Why would anyone give themselves ill will? So just change the attitude, give yourselves kind will. The reason is because that's how many people have been conditioned by their upbringing. Your mum says you're not good enough. So you try even harder. And even that's not good enough. I was mentioning this to someone today, that this was a story of when I was growing up. Your parents were quite poor, but they told me, because I like playing soccer, spent so much time in the parks, in the streets playing soccer. And when I got to about 14, I was doing my O-level exams, the first stage of exams in the UK, and my parents and teachers said, don't spend so much time chasing a football. Do your homework, study more. Because if you get your O-levels exams, then you'll be happy in life. You get a qualification, you can get jobs. So I gave up chasing a football and did my homework, and I did really well. But was I happy? No, because now I had to do A-levels, more exams. And at that time, my father passed away, unfortunately. But my mother and other relations and teachers said, oh, no. I wasn't chasing footballs then, I was chasing girls. Stay at home, do your homework, and then you pass your A-levels, then you do really well in life. So I believed them, and I did my A-levels and did really well. Was I happy? No. Now I had to go to university, more exams. You ever noticed that? Whenever you pass an exam, you have to do another one later on. Sometimes I tell parents this. I said, look, I tell their children, as soon as you've found an exam, then you're free. They don't like me when I say that. But anyway, I didn't know at the time, so I passed my A-levels, did really well, went to university, more exams. But they said, no, look, this is Cambridge. It's a big university. You get a degree from Cambridge, then you're bound to be happy. But at that time, you start thinking for yourself. I tell people I started to get suspicious. You do this and then you'll be happy. And I looked at other people who'd already graduated. Were they happy? No way. They had to get a job and work. They had no money. And it was really tough, the first jobs they got. But they saved up. And I asked the people, what are you working so hard for? I'm going to buy a car. I'll buy a house. And before they got enough money to even do that, then they fell in love and got married. Now they're in big trouble. They needed a bigger house. And they said, no, well, once we get the house and pay off the mortgage, then we'll be happy. But before they even get close to paying off their mortgage, then they have kids. And that's really big trouble now. Kids are very expensive. And so they work really hard in their life. They get a few promotions. When their kids finally leave home, because I always think, when the kids leave home, then we'll be free. We don't have to worry about them. We can go overseas or do whatever we want. But by that time, they're usually so old, they're close to retirement. So they carry on working, because then they think, when I retire, then I'll be happy. They're always putting off happiness until a later date. By the time they retire, if you ever notice that, you find so many people, old people who are retired, they go to Buddhist temples and retreat centers and mosques and churches. Why are most churches filled with old people? Because they're all thinking, when I die, then I'll be happy. When I started thinking like that, why are people always putting it off? When I finish the project, then I'll be happy. When we've finished Project Accord in the Buddhist Society, then I can relax. It will never be finished. There'll always be another project afterwards. People would ask me sometimes, Bodhinyana Monastery, said, when will the monastery be finished? It's never finished, always building something else or cleaning up something. These things are never completed. If you think, once it's finished and completed, then I'll be happy, you're missing the point. It's not completion, because life is never complete. It's always unfinished business, even when you die. It's just, how are we doing it now? It's a process, not the end result. So when people said, no, do this and then you'll be happy, that was the wrong message. Are you happy doing this now? Forget about the result. It's the process is important. It's not what you're going to achieve, but how are you doing this right now? So anyway, that is, what was the question anyway? I don't know. Crikey, I've lost the questions. Anyway, that's a good answer anyway for whatever the question was. See, praise. Dear Ajahn, we are very fortunate to have you as our teacher here in JG. Excellent, because I'm the only teacher you have on this retreat. So being happy to have me is just, that's a good process. It's making the best of what you got. If you complain and said, well, I feel very upset you're our teacher on this retreat, then I go back to my room, go back to Bodhinyana, won't come back again tomorrow morning. I find your talks wonderful, even the jokes, eh? Oh well. Even the one with the vomiting maggots. I know there's a few psychologists here. Maybe I should refrain. No, thank you so much. All these simple stories give profound lessons. Excellent, because that's why I tell most of the jokes and stories. They may sort of sound just humorous, but you remember them, and there's a really lot of wisdom in that. Even just the last story about, finish your exam, then you'll be happy. That was describing my life. It describes so many other people's lives. They sacrifice thinking, once they do this, then they'll be happy. Once you get rid of the cancer, then you'll be happy. You're not. It's being happy with this cancer. It's being at peace with the whole process of life. It's understanding the 70% rule. You don't have to be perfect. But you're learning, growing all the time. And that learning and growing, that is life. It's seeing the trees in the forest. There is no perfect tree in this forest. They're all bent and crooked. And they're beautiful that way. You wouldn't want to fix them and just make them all straight. Without sick people, there's no one to care for. Sickness is wonderful in that sense. The opportunity to be kind and compassionate to people who are sick. So next time you are sick, tell your partner, tell your husband, there's a wonderful opportunity for you now. I'm sick, you have to look after me. And see what he says. If he's a Buddhist, he'll say, wonderful. It's a great joy to look after people you love. It's one of my faults. And I admit this, one of my great faults is I don't get sick enough. If I got sick, what would you do? You could offer me special medicines, special treatments. I say, oh, wonderful, please let me treat you. Because this is sometimes I tell this, and it's no exaggeration. If I got sick when I was overseas, there'll be a fight of doctors who want to look after me. I'm looking after him. No, I'm going to look after him. No, I will look after him. Because people want to make good karma, and they love you, they care for you. And that's one way of showing they care. It did happen once that I sneezed in Nolamara. And then I did actually see a couple of people leave. But it wasn't because they were afraid of catching what I got. they actually came back later on with medicines for me. And they came up after the talk and they put this medicine. This is really good medicine. It cured my sneezing. I just got it from the pharmacy, and somebody else came along. No, this is Ayurvedic medicine. There's no chemicals in it. It's really good stuff. It cured, my sneezing. And then somebody, no. This is homeopathic medicine. You must take this. It cured my sneezing. This is herbal medicine. And the first time I did it, I had all these medicines in front of me. All types, allopathic, homeopathic, psychopathic. And I'd agreed to, because people say, "We'll take it, won't you?" I said, "Oh, yeah." And because I said that, I can't lie. I have to keep my promises. So I took all this medicine all at the same time, and that really made me sick. And people say, "No, you take my medicine. Don't take anyone else's. Just take mine." Thank you so much. But one of the reasons I took the medicines first of all, because it made people so happy. I took their medicines. They went, all that problem to give it to me. I thought, I should take it. It made me sick. I wasn't that bad before, but after taking medicine, that really made me trouble. Anyway, all this hypnosis gives profound lessons. Yeah, I bow my head to your wisdom with respect and gratitude. Very good. My question is about rebirth. What is the chance that we are something be born as a human being and not some lowly creature? Well, don't call creatures lowly. Some human beings are pretty lowly. Some people want to be reborn like that. So don't demean animals. Animals can be so very wonderful beings. Very smart, very kind. Which would you rather be reborn as? Anyway, so will one carry the improvements that we have made in our practice to the next life? Yes, you will. You made some good karma. Your inclinations. It's sometimes, what the heck am I doing becoming a Buddhist monk at 23? Where did that come from? No one in my family could even spell Buddhism. And I was becoming a Buddhist monk. Why? It's obviously from my previous life. The inclinations there. And I mentioned, I still remember seeing my first Buddhist monk, and it blew my mind. Amazing. Wow. And why did that happen? And it's after a while you realize it has to be some from the past. Because your inclinations in the past, that's what makes you who you are in this life. Here in Jhana Grove, we are very lucky we do not have to sit under the mango tree every morning. Sadhu to Christina Sadama. Slices of mangoes are saved on a platter. But they're not the mangoes from the Buddha's trees. These are really delicious, the yummy trees. Dear Ajahn, what are the 5 hindrances? Oh, weren't you here this morning and the last day? The 5 hindrances are not remembering what I said this morning. That's the first hindrance. The second hindrance is not remembering what I said this morning. The third hindrance is not remembering what I said a few minutes ago. The fourth hindrance is remembering what I said a minute ago. And the last hindrance is not remembering what I said a second ago. So anyway, those 5 hindrances are, in brief, because you may not have been here for those talks, but I have focused a lot on them. It's like wanting something. Can't we be content? It's pretty good in this place, but you can always be better. But if you want it to be better, you can't enjoy what you already have. So wanting is the first hindrance. Instead of really being able to see what you have right now, we're just worrying about what we can get next. And opposite to that is ill will, which is a crazy thing. ill will towards yourself, ill will towards others, ill will towards life. Instead of seeing what's wrong in things, you see what's right in things. You don't see the 2 bad bricks in the wall, you see the 998 good bricks in the wall. So you can be at peace with the wall. You have peace and clarity. Then you've got drowsiness and restlessness, the 2 opposites. If you're really restless, you waste energy uselessly. If you're drowsy, you haven't got any energy because you've been restless before. And people just go between the 2 of those. And the doubt, as I mentioned this morning, those are the 5 hindrances. Why do we need to meditate to disappear? What we can now, where we can now eat so much good food and sleep so well and so much and already so happy eating and sleeping. Eating and sleeping is comfortable, but after a while, you see there's much more to life than eating food. It's eating truth and Dhamma. Instead of sleeping and being peaceful but not being aware, not being able to really enjoy what you're doing when you sleep. Because, you're unconscious. Imagine being peaceful but being aware at the same time. And instead of eating food, eating truth, inspiration, joy, happiness, much better than any food. So that's available here. So if you meditate, you get the best 5-star food. There's a fine line between relaxed and lazy. How do we differentiate it? If you relax, you have energy. If you are lazy, you get depressed. That makes sense? Okay, well, whether it makes sense or not, that's what you're getting. I'm getting short of time. Dear Ajahn, thank you for granting permission to visit your master bedroom today. If you are a head monk, sometimes they call you master. And especially in the Chinese tradition. They ask master, can you please help? Master, can you do this? So I think it's really sort of gender differentiation. So why don't they call the head nun mistress? Isn't that the female form of master, mistress? So really we should call it Mistress Hasapanya. Anyway. Do you sleep in the cave every day? No, I don't. Sometimes I sleep here in Jhana Grove tonight. Or sometimes you're overseas. When I go overseas, I don't sleep in my cave. But when I'm in Bodhinyana Monastery, yes, I sleep there every day. If not, what is the longest period you've spent in the cave? I don't know. 1 moment. You don't capture time. Some people say, what's the longest time you've meditated? And I say, only 1 moment. Because the 1 moment lasts forever. It can be hours or days sometimes. But if you actually count the minutes, it's not peaceful anymore. If you stay in the moment, time has no meaning. And you can stay there a lot. I spend most of the time in that cave. In which year was the cave built? Who were the builders? This looks like questions from the council. I forget. What is the significance of the bat in your cave? Why not? Caves are supposed to have bats. So I've got a bat in the cave. Did you see the bat in the cave? Some people think it's like just a toy bat. It's a meditating bat. That's why it's so still. From IKEA. How is the air in the cave kept circulated to protect from mold? There is an air circulation system. Didn't I not show it to you? There's a pipe going in and a pipe going out. So I remember when I first went to stay in it, I just got a candle and just lit the candle to see if there was a flow of air. And it was just a very fine flow of air, but enough. because you sleep in there or you meditate in there, you don't do exercise in there, you don't do push-ups and cycling or anything, so you don't actually expend so much oxygen. So because of that, you don't, the air in there is just really pretty good. I never noticed any problems at all with breathing. Dear Ajahn Brahm, can a transgender from female to male become your monk? Or how to become a nun? What happens if they only want to become a monk, not nun? Depends who you are. And the most important thing is actually, can you relax and stay in monastic life? Is that for you? So a lot of time, if that happened, that somebody was transgender and they wanted to, say, become a monk in Bodhinyana monastery, like everybody else, they stay just for a few weeks, first of all, there. And then they become anagarika in white. And it would give it time for them to test out, are there any problems there? Any difficulties? So we always give things a try, give things a go. See what happens. Because if they fit in there, if it suits them, then why not? And I say this because the first problem I had when I became a preceptor and could ordain people, became the boss monk, the master of Bodhinyana, that there was somebody who was gay. This was, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago now. And they wanted to stay in monastery and ordain, staying with a group of men. And I just asked him, he said, is any problem? I asked him, if you saw a man come in who was really hot, so what would you do? And I was heterosexual, and he said, I'd just go to my kuti and just relax and just rest. Because it might the more I see and contact him, it might stir me up. I thought that was a pretty good answer. So he stayed for a year. It was wonderful as an anagarika. So we ordained him as a novice, ordained him as a monk. He's a very senior monk now. I won't say who these people are, but he's done a wonderful job. He's a very well known. He wasn't ashamed of being different than anybody else. He fit in okay. If you can fit in and not cause a problem, wonderful. And the next problem I had was, I thought, well, okay, gays, no problem. Gays and lesbians, if you want to become a monk or a nun and you can keep the rules, great. The next thing which we had was a monk who was clinical schizophrenic. And I was a bit more concerned there because people told me if you do lots of meditation and with schizophrenic, you can really go off the rails. We did have an example of that when there was one man, he was from Melbourne, and he was ordained as a monk, and I was woken up in the early morning because they said he was walking around in front of the main hall without any clothes on at all. He totally lost it. It was schizophrenia. And it takes a lot of time, just caring for people who've lost it like that. And eventually he had to get his family over from Melbourne and send him back over there. And so past experiences with people with schizophrenia made me very reluctant to ordain anybody like that. So when people actually come to stay in the monastery, sometimes you have to fill out a form, what sort of any mental, physical, emotional problems you have. And then this one monk came, and he was just so honest. He said, yeah, I'm a clinical schizophrenic. But I'd known him for a while, and he seemed a very nice fellow, so he allowed him to stay for a while. And he did this wonderful stuff. And I remember him saying once his medication wasn't working, so he had to go in to get it balanced. So he went in for 2 or 3 days, had it balanced, and came back again. And now he too is a senior monk. And I won't say who he is, because you don't want to get people to look at him, but he's a wonderful monk. I'm so proud of him. That, he was a clinical schizophrenic, but because of his mindfulness and wisdom, he's a really, really good monk. So because of that, I've had some of my judgments challenged and overcome And so if someone is, say, trans, then give them a chance, see what happens. Other monks will not do that to ordain them. But I've had such good results, with gays and with, those are the main ones, and people who are schizophrenic, and just give them some trust. And they do a wonderful job with their lives. And this also means that when they do begin to teach, they can teach from this wonderful experience that being a monastic, a monk or a nun, it's almost anyone can do that. And it's not the fact that because of your gender characterization or even your mental health doesn't mean you can't become a monk or a nun. Give it a try and see if you can handle it, and if it suits you, carry on. So actually you can't, to me, I'm more proud of that than probably anything else which I've done, is actually open up Buddhist monasticism to all sorts of groups where they can't even get a chance in other places. And it works for them. Yeah, well done. Anyway, yeah, who knows? Maybe give it a try. Dear Ajahn, is it true that we're supposed to feel 4 elements when we meditate? They have 4 elements in traditional Buddhism, but I was a theoretical physicist. And those 4 elements honestly, there's no way I can reconcile them with what I know of science. No way. And so these days, you don't have to have everything in Buddhism. You have enough which works. If you can feel elements and they work for you, great. But I would prefer to looking upon nature as the 3 quarks, subatomic physics, and the laws of nature. To me, that is more profound than the 4 elements. The 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And later on, they realized that wasn't really getting close to everything. So what do they say? Solidity, fluidity, heat, and air or wind. Even that's not enough. So the whole point of those 4 elements is just to see this physical stuff is not really much at all. You just dissect it into these 4 elements, or into atoms, or into quarks, or whatever, and you see there's nothing much there. I always like the subatomic physics. Your body sitting on the floor. Why don't you fall through the floor? Because the floor, there's nothing really there. There is just the molecules. And between those molecules is maybe 99.999% space. There's nothing really there. And in that molecule, you can see just a collection of atoms. And between each atom, there's 99.999% nothing. And even the atom, you've got the electron going around the nucleus. Between the electron and the nucleus, there's, you know what, 99.999% nothing. And even in the nucleus, the protons and the neutrons. In one proton, there's 99.99999% nothing. Just a few subatomic particles like quarks messing around. I mean, look at stuff. Solid stuff like the floor you're sitting underneath, that's concrete, even concrete. It's mostly nothing there. That's really cool to see how empty this universe is, the solid part of it, let alone when you go out into space. So 4 elements was not as meaningful to me as the science said there's nothing here at all, just space, just forces balancing each other. We take those for being human beings. But you're not a human being. You're space. There used to be a goal when I was young to space out. emptiness, nothing there. And that's much closer to the truth than thinking you're something. And I remember just in the astrophysics of the galaxy, this sun is so many, they call them neutrinos. Neutrinos, they don't react with anything. They go right through you. And right through the floor and through the earth. And there's billions of them flying through you right now from the sun. Where is the sun now? It's just the other side of the earth. It's nighttime. Going right through the earth. Right through the floor, right through you, and out into space. Can you feel them? No, you can't. There's nothing there. So that, sometimes I really get into that sort of stuff. Anyway, so feel the quarks. Oh, last question. It's one of those blank pieces of the paper again. That's it. So we have finished the questions. We finished on a quark. What a wonderful way to finish. So, now we have the three quarks. Quark, quark, quark. Okay, that makes a change from the sadhus. You want to do the sadhus as well?
Yes.
Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. But with that last answer, just, you can adapt. You don't have to believe everything which is in the suttas. There's some parts of it, you can say, like there was the marks of a great man, and Buddha had all these great marks, but Buddha looked like a normal human being. So there's some stuff there which you don't have to believe everything you see in the suttas. So you're not going to be hung up on a cross or burnt at the stake, if you question. That's one of the nice things about Buddhism. You can actually question, find out what's really true in it. Where you find it useful, follow it. Where you find it doesn't make sense, just put it aside. It's wonderful. Okay, so good night. Please now put me aside. Thank you for being my... Yeah. Very good. Okay. Not enough notes, is there? Yeah, one joke. The master of Mr. Stroke.